For today's, psalm excerpt, y'all all pick psalms, and I go by this because I can't remember what we've done and what we haven't done. This
Well,
way
it
I
doesn't
feel
matter.
like
We
saying-
won't remember them
Yeah.
anyway.
That's true, okay. So this is coming from Psalm 141, verses 8 through 10. But my eyes are turned to you, Lord God. In you I take refuge. Do not strip me of my life. Protect me from the snare which they have laid for me, and from the traps of the evildoers. Let the wicked fall into their own nets, while I myself escape. And then it says, pray to be aware of God's protection for you today. We tend to be oblivious to God, I think, a whole lot of the time. I know I do.
It says in mine that, David asked God to protect him and to give him wisdom in accepting criticism.
Ooh, good for David.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't feel like.
So we might call it today feedback.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I'm being ambitious today. I'm aiming to get through 3 chapters. We're starting on chapter 33. And it's only the 3 chapters only total about 50 verses, so I've had. Okay, so let me give you an overview and then we'll do some reading and I'll give you some further information and then y'all.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah, okay. Okay, much of the previous chapters of Isaiah start from the concrete situation of the Judahites being threatened by Assyria. And we remember that they tried to get help from Egypt. This chapter does not have concrete references. It's very generic in terms of the prophecies. And so it could reflect many historical situations, all variants on the same sort of experience. Israel is the victim of a destroyer. It could be Assyria. It could be Babylon, Persia, Seleucid Greek. And sometimes those superpowers were more benevolent than others. Some of them kind of, we'll take your money, but you can do what you want. And others were more micromanagers who are going to squish you with their thumb. Regardless of how benevolent their rulers may have been, that, the Jews or Hebrews wanted freedom. We all do. We want to be able to manage our own. This chapter offers an expression of that final vision by taking up motifs and phrases from previous chapters and using them to draw a new picture of the final fulfillment. And so you're going to see lots of images just kind of hopping. It's like whoever had an attention deficit disorder or something, they just kind of hop around a lot. It's pretty scary for the people of God itself when Yahweh finally takes action. The 3rd paragraph recognizes they may be caught in the heat when God acts in wrath. Oppression by outside powers can drag people down to the level of their oppressors, and the prophecy reminds them of some basic expectations that God has of them. If Yahweh is coming, they need to clean up their act. And we could all remember that. Okay, so starting with chapter 33, if somebody would read verses 1 through 13.
I will.
Okay.
Woe to you, destroying though not yourself destroyed, betraying though not yourself betrayed. When you have finished destroying, you will be destroyed. When you have stopped betraying, you will be betrayed. Yahweh, show us your mercy. We hope in you. Be our arm every morning and our salvation in times of distress. At the sound of tumult, the peoples flee. When you stand up, the nations scatter. Your spoil is gathered in as a grasshopper gathers in. Like a swarm of locust, people descend on it. Yahweh is exalted, for he is enthroned above. He has filled Zion with fair judgment and saving justice. You can count on this all your days. Wisdom and knowledge are the riches that save. The fear of Yahweh is his treasure. Look, Ariel is lamenting in the streets. The ambassadors of peace are weeping bitterly. The highways are deserted. No travelers anymore on the roads. Agreements are broken. Witnesses held in contempt. There is respect for no one. The land pines away in mourning. The Lebanon is withering with shame. Sharon has become like the wasteland. Bashan and Carmel are shuddering. Now I shall stand up, says Yahweh. Now I shall rise, now draw myself up. You conceive chaff, you give birth to straw. Like fire, my breath will bear you. The peoples will be burnt up as though by quicklime. Like cut thorns, they will be burnt on the fire. You who are far away, listen to what I have done, and you who are near, realize my strength.
Okay.
Another uplifting one, but
Yes.
mine makes the note that the style is so different and the themes are so different. They're sure Isaiah did not write this one.
Right, and, my big fat Bible that I didn't feel like lugging in today said that, they think that the first verse may have been a continuation of something previous. Or it just, because it's so disjointed, it doesn't really fit. So, and then the second verse sounds like the beginning of a psalm, but it obviously is not a psalm. So yeah, just, it's,
It says maybe even a liturgy. That it may have been a liturgy,
okay,
a post-exilic prophetic liturgy.
okay. And, when it talks about in verse 7, it talks about the, desolate countryside. It says, reflect a moment when Jerusalem is sorely threatened by besiegers, and the best candidate is probably Sennacherib's assault on the city. And then in the next verse, it talks about breaking a covenant, and Sennacherib broke a covenant in 701 BCE. So that's the best bet for who's doing that. Then in verse 10, what did your Bible say in verse 10?
Now I shall stand up, says Yahweh.
Okay,
Now I shall rise, now draw myself up.
this is a turning point. God has put up with all he's gonna put up with. Now he's standing up and you better watch out. In verse 11, it refers to the Assyrians. So again, we're just hopping from superpower to superpower. And talking about the chaff and the straw and the fire, it's just, it says what they're doing is utter futility because chaff and straw are worthless. They burn quickly, you're gone. And first, okay, so we start. Any comments? Welcome, latecomers.
I'm sorry, everything's, when you're monodextrous. Nothing gets done fast.
Any other comments?
It's really strange how, when you're reading from another Bible, and I'm reading from, NIV, things are, how the words are always turned around
Yeah,
backwards, the sentences are rearranged, and, I like this much better.
and then Bernie's is just completely different.
Yeah.
Well, it's a true Bible.
What Bible is it, Bernie?
The good news,
Thank you.
I like verse 10 that you just read. In mine, it says, now will I arise, says the Lord. Now will I be exalted. Now will I be lifted up.
is that a question?
No, it's
No.
a statement, it's Yahweh speaking, and that's how mine was translated. My other Bible.
That's the opposite. Now I will have.
Yeah, that's what.
I will show
Put the
you my
will in
powerful way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I will make Bernie rich.
Okay, you Puritan. I believe you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna be like Tom, I'm not sitting next to you in case the lightning strikes you through the window. Okay, did somebody read verses 14 through 24, which is the end of the chapter?
Do that.
Okay, and what version do you have? 'Cause
I have the contemporary English
Okay,
version.
go for it.
Those terrible sinners on Mount Zion tremble as they ask in fear, how can we possibly live where a raging fire never stops burning? But there will be rewards for those who live right and tell the truth. For those who refuse to take any money by force or accept bribes. For those who hate murder and violent crimes. They will live in a fortress high on a rocky cliff where they will have food and plenty of water. With your own eyes, you will see the glorious King. You will see his kingdom reaching far and wide. Then you will ask yourself, where are those officials who terrified us and forced us to pay such heavy taxes? You will never again have to see the proud people who spoke a strange and foreign language you could not understand. Look to Mount Zion, where we celebrate our religious festivals. You will see Jerusalem secure as a tent with pegs that cannot be pulled up and fastened with ropes that can never be broken. Our wonderful Lord will be with us. There will be deep rivers and wide streams safe from enemy ships. The Lord is our judge and our ruler. The Lord is our king and will keep us safe. But your nation is a ship with its rigging loose, its mast shaky, and its sail not spread. Someday even you that are lame will take everything you want from your enemies. The Lord will forgive your sins, and none of you will say, I feel sick.
Wow, that's different.
That's very
Different.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
That's
wow.
pretty close.
Is that? Yeah, no, that makes sense, that those two would be close, yeah. I'm sitting here going, oh, she's finished, I'm still up in verse 12. I'm still trying to find where she is. Okay. What version are you reading, Stuart?
I have the Life Application Study Bible open right now. And I didn't. What?
NIV?
That's the
Yeah.
New International Version,
Uh-huh.
that's the translation.
And but I didn't follow a single word, I think, on that last reading.
I won't read anymore.
They had 33, right?
Come on, I got.
Yeah,
You follow it?
Yeah.
Follow
Yeah,
them.
yeah, the themes are there, it's just, you
My
know,
wording is
very different words. Yeah.
You all don't have the King James version.
Right, it was good enough for Jesus, it ought to be good enough for us. The reason we say, Paul Simrell, who used to be an associate minister here and now he's been out at Elvis for what, 15, 20 years. When he was in seminary, back in the days when you actually went to seminary and had your little student church way out in the country, he had one of his congregants say that to him in all seriousness. If the King James Version was good enough for Jesus, it ought to be good enough for us. What are you doing reading this newfangled stuff?
If you read that, I could not understand thee.
Yeah, I couldn't understand the either. So,
Sarah, you probably don't remember, but one of your visits here, I opened up my Bible and it was the King James. And you looked at it and said, oh, that's the hardest one to understand. Get another one. So I think
No, I
that's, well,
I don't remember it, but I'm not surprised either.
Grow up with King James version.
Yeah, of course.
Revised Standard.
Catholic Bible.
Yeah.
What version I was reading, but
RSV.
I had a King James and, as
Yeah.
a teenager and stuff and looking at it.
Yeah, and I grew up
Yeah.
Baptist and went to GA's, Girls Auxiliary, and they had steps, you could earn badges or whatever, I don't know what I earned. But I still have all that stuff, but I memorized hundreds of verses over several years out of the King James Bible.
oh yeah, definitely. Well, we'll have to compare, Sarah, we'll have to compare crowns.
Yes, we will. And I have a cape and a scepter and yeah, I did the whole 9 yards.
Oh, boy.
I have no idea where mine are.
In Girls Auxiliary, you get all this pair.
I
It's
have
like,
no idea what you're talking
it's like
about.
uniform
It
for
was-
Girl Scouts.
it
It's
was,
a Baptist thing.
Yeah, it's a Baptist thing, and the best
Or it
thing
was.
I can compare it to is,
Catechism?
well, no, it's more
No.
like Girl Scouts where you earn badges. I mean,
Oh.
you do work and you go up the steps but it wasn't a badge. I mean, well, the first one may have been, first few, but you started out with, what was the first one? Maiden, princess, queen, queen in waiting, queen in, with a scepter, and I'll literally have a paper crown, but I
Mhm.
have a satin.
Oh, you've gotta wear it next to.
Yeah.
Just have to.
How about if I save the cake for March 17th because it is bright green?
There you go.
Okay.
And I'll write, but it's you went higher up in the steps, I've still got, I mean, I wrote papers. I mean,
Wow.
not only memorizing and regurgitating verses, but, yeah, I may do a little,
Wow.
yeah.
And that was like a Baptist summer
It's a,
camp?
no, it's not,
It's not. a
it's like, it was,
It was like their youth group.
That's
right, it's
Boys
there,
and girls were kept separate, you
yeah,
know, in the Baptist church.
Of course
Yeah.
there was. And you don't dance because that's just vertical sex.
yeah. Well, my dad, who was, fairly progressive for his generation, taught a co-ed Sunday school class for high school kids that I was in. And the deacons, because they didn't have elders, the deacons were like, the board. And they were elected for life, took him aside one day and said, "Thou shalt not." And they were so ugly to him that I'm not sure he went back to church other than Christmas and Easter after that. Because he was trying to teach kids together. Yeah. And I was in a church that was so huge that we had a superintendent of Sunday school for each 3-year age. So, and you'd go in and you'd have like a multi-purpose room, and then first grade girls, first grade boys, second girls, second, and then yeah.
We used to be told that, when you dance, we were allowed to dance, but you said girls were here, boys were here, and you left space for the Holy Spirit in between.
Well, my parents let us, I went to dances.
For Catholics, the quirkiness was girls could not wear patent leather shoes.
It reflects something, you see your
Yes.
underwear.
Is that what it is?
Yes.
Supposedly, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey,
Maybe you looked at that leather
Nothing.
shoes.
I
Maybe not.
start, who was it?
No.
Sergeant? On,
yeah.
yeah, I know nothing. Okay, back to Isaiah. Yeah, yeah, the things we did growing up.
Were you Baptist too?
No, I was Lutheran. I had to take 3 years of classes, like going to school, like Jewish
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
Lutherans had to go to school for 3 years on Sunday evenings for 3 hours and take catechism classes. I know a lot of Bible verses too.
I realized I forgot them all,
Oh, no, we would learn them in English, modern
Okay.
English. Yeah,
but
not King James English.
yeah, I don't hold on to words, I hold on to numbers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it would have been like memorizing Shakespeare, I'm sure.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we started that, you started at what? 14,
I
okay.
start with 14.
Yeah. So offenders have feared in Zion, and this turns to the offenders within Jerusalem and this begins a new prophecy. And it's possible that the appearance of the fire at the end of this verse leads to the, placement of this text here, because we were talking about. Shh, sorry. We won't put you in the, excuses.
Got it right, working.
Yeah. So, my Bible
Why
says
we're-
the editor may have put this verse right after 13 because they both talk about fire. And so, it's talking about Jerusalem as a fortified position. Although there also is kind of a pun here, in Hebrew, but since we don't speak Hebrew, we won't get it. The new prophecy harkens back to Isaiah's evoking of an ideal king in chapter 11 and elsewhere. Okay, I'm trying to figure out what that word is, not typing messed up here. Literal sense of the Hebrew is that this is a land of distances. The idea is that when God restores Israel, it will be a huge, vast country. In the verse 18, what the prophet has in mind is the splendid abundance of buildings and towers in the restored city. And it quotes, it goes back and refers to Psalm 48:13. Go around Zion and circle it, count its towers. And this is also a poetic celebration of triumph over enemies who have attacked the city. And in 19, where it talks about the unintelligible language, you can't understand, that's one of the terrifying aspects of their, they come and they're yelling at you and you don't understand them because they're speaking some weird language. And anytime I read something like this, I think about, the slaves that we brought over from Africa, and the whites thought they were stupid because they didn't understand English. Well, of course not. They've been speaking something else, but that's how arrogant the English were. And even though in verse 20, it talks about a tent, he says this tent is as solid and permanent as a building would be. We think of tents as temporary, a good gust of wind will just take it away. That's not the case here. And obviously there are no, in verse 21, there are no broad rivers in the land of Judah. This is a utopian fantasy, if we had everything we wanted. And where no sailing craft can go suggests that no invading fleets can enter here. And then in 13, they talk about Edomite. The palaces are in ruins to the point that ostriches just wander around and take up residence. In 14, they're overlapping real animals and mythological creatures. So in the midst of the hyenas and the jackals, goat demons and a demonic goddess.
Wait a minute, Sarah,
Wait.
13 and 14, I don't see anything about
Sorry,
ostriches.
hold on. I
Okay.
meant,
Oh,
I
you
should have
skipped over
changed.
to 34.
Yeah,
That's in the
Yeah.
next
I
chapter.
forgot to turn the page over. Sorry.
I was thinking, what am I?
Spoiler alert.
There's gonna be
goats running
around.
Spoiler alert.
Sorry, yeah, okay. So in verse 23,
You're concentrating on the numbers, not the words.
your ropes have come loose. And the you in that verse would be Israel's enemies, and this may explain why in the previous verse it said no sailing craft can enter these waters. If your rigging is not right, you can't control your boat. And then where it talks about the very lame have taken plunder, the idea here is that the defeat of the enemy will be so devastating that it's not just warriors who will go in and plunder, but lame people will be able to go in and take what they want. In other words, the enemies are not going to have anything left to fight with. Okay, so that finishes 33. Any comments? It's weird to see all this quiet.
This always reminds me a little bit, Mark Twain wrote an essay about how people pray to their God in times of war so that their side will win. And, he was pointing out the hypocrisy of people praying about this stuff, because for your side to win, the other side, a lot of people have to get killed, and then you have to be doing this is being held up as if it's a great thing. We're gonna
Yeah.
wipe out the other side, and we're gonna go in and steal all their stuff. They won't have anything
Well,
left.
both sides are praying for somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was what Mark Twain said, what does God think when he's getting these prayers from both sides
Yeah.
about, wanting
Probably
to.
goes on vacation.
Yeah. Yeah, and you just talking about that reminded me, I think it was World War I, where the enemies on Christmas Eve ceased fighting and celebrated Christmas together. And I thought, how sick is
Silent
this?
night.
It just
Silent
makes me
Night.
so-
Silent Night was what they started singing.
Mm,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So, yeah, we're so messed up. Okay. And I put myself at the top of that list. Okay, Golden Gate actually lumps chapters 34 and 35 together.
So does my Bible.
Oh, okay. So they're both relatively short. So if someone would read chapter 34, it is 17 verses.
I've got it.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Translation.
Thou shalt pay attention.
Talk about all the animals.
Yeah. Oh, this is? Oh,
Yeah,
boy.
this is one of them.
Ruh-roh. Come people of all nations, gather around and listen. Let the whole earth and everyone living on it come here and listen. The Lord is angry with all the nations and all their armies. He has condemned them to destruction. Their corpse will not be buried, but will lie there rotting and stinking, and the mountains will be red with blood. The sun, moon, and stars will crumble to dust. The sky will disappear like a scroll being rolled up, and the stars will fall like leaves dropping from a vine or a fig tree. The Lord has prepared his sword in heaven, and now it will strike Edom, those people whom he has condemned to destruction. His sword will be covered and with their blood and fat, like the blood and fat of lambs and goats that are sacrificed.
Mine has a much more grosser description.
Okay, we'll come back to yours in a minute.
Okay. The Lord will offer this sacrifice in the city of Bozrah. He will make this a great slaughter in the land of Edom. The people will fall like wild oxen and young bulls, and the earth will be red with blood and covered with fat. This is the time when the Lord will rescue Zion and take vengeance on her enemies. The rivers of Edom will turn into tar, and the soil will turn into sulfur. The whole country will burn like tar. It will burn day and night, and smoke will rise from it forever. The land will lie waste age after age, and no one will ever travel through it again. Owls and ravens will take over the land. The Lord will make it a barren waste again, as it was before the creation. There will be no king to rule the country, and the leaders will all be gone. Thorns and thistles will grow up in all the palaces and whaled towns, and jackals and owls will live in them. Wild animals will roam there, and demons will call to each other. The night monster will come there looking for a place to rest. Owls will build their nests, lay eggs, hatch their young, and care for them there. Vultures will gather there, one after another. Search in the Lord's book of living creatures and read what it says. Not one of these creatures will be missing, and not one will be without its mate. The Lord has commanded it to be so. He himself will bring them together. It is the Lord who will divide the land among them and give each of them a share. They will live in the land age after age, and it will belong to them forever.
And we worried about what?
Yeah. Whatever that is. Sometimes these things, it just sounds so bizarre.
Well,
Well,
yours
it
doesn't
sounds-
sound as bizarre as mine did.
I know, with all the
Because
jackals.
you had,
Yeah, you softened it up.
yeah,
Yeah.
she just had owls,
Well,
and
you know.
vultures and ostriches.
Now,
and-
mine would
Our
include
generation
pelicans
is
and
sensitive.
hedgehogs.
Yeah.
Mine has pelicans and hedgehogs too.
Pelicans and
Yeah.
hedgehogs too. Yours left out the pelicans and hedgehogs.
Jesus.
You know, I wonder
Well, I
if
can-
there's a cliff notes for Isaiah. You know, we could. He could be done with like that. Just asking.
Oh, dear.
But it does remind me of like, if all of us are killed, you know, you can go to old places where the town is gone and there's nothing and the nature is slowly taking it over.
Yeah.
And the animals are coming
Yeah.
back in and taking it over. And
Well, that's
so
what
it's like,
they're-
you know,
yeah,
Armageddon
The
or
things will be
something.
so bad in Edom or whatever that
Yeah,
Right.
the
Yeah.
animals will,
yeah.
even the pelicans and the hedgehogs.
So forget about that idea about we wanted to experiment with humans. Let's go back to the, you know,
Yeah.
just
Have the animals.
have all of the animals.
Well, I actually was reading an article, I think this was in Smithsonian Daily. And in some of the Forest Service lands where the Forest Service has taken over, areas that used to be logging areas. And of course, lots of roads to get those logs out of the forest. And they are tearing up the road so that they can revert back to nature. And how quickly that happens, for one thing, and how much better it is for the environment, you know.
Well, even in the solar farms, you know, the fields that they have the solar panels, there's a significant increase in the number of insects in those fields, which is a good thing,
Yes, I know.
because our insect population around the world has dropped, you know, significant, like, what is it, 40%?
Yeah.
At least 40% over the past 30-some years. So, and the bird population is having a similar decline.
Right, because their food's disappearing.
Right, but the insects in those solar fields is increasing, because they're not being
disturbed.
not really being, hopefully the grass, you know, the vegetation's being mowed.
Right, but still, it's not being sprayed.
Right, hopefully it's not,
Yeah.
yeah. Right,
Yeah, my neighborhood is full of people that spray their yards, and I'm like, no, stop.
yeah. Stop. Yeah, there's new research that all kinds of oat products have another pesticide in them.
That what?
A pesticide, I forget the name of it,
Oats.
or something. But in all kinds of oat products that are not, organic oats. So Roundup's already used to help harvest oats. And then there's the second pesticide that's showing up at significant levels. Significant levels.
So all these vegetarians and vegans are gonna die of poisoning too.
Well, that's why I switched to organic oats years ago.
Yeah.
I figured there was enough
Yeah,
stuff showing up in the oats.
yeah,
It's at a lower level
right.
in organic oats, not absent. It's at a
Yeah.
lower level.
One thing that, he talks about, and since you pointed to Edom, and this kind of gets me, Edom descended from who? This is a quiz question.
Esau?
Yes. And who was Esau?
Jacob's brother.
Right,
Oh, Jacob's brother.
Jacob's twin. Yes,
Married
that
one.
Jacob, you know, grabbing his heel and stealing his birthright.
Right.
And so he says, you know, this is a case of Jacob being the chosen, Edom being the unchosen, Jacob being blessed, Edom not being blessed. And they're gonna take over Edom and destroy Edom. They didn't. Edom became the Edomians.
Edomites, I thought they were called.
Well, later on, they become
Edomians?
something like that. But they convert to Judaism. And my guy said, you know, maybe this is a neat destruction. You know, we convert you. Yeah, remember Herod? That's what he was.
And
Edomite?
Edomite?
Not an Edomite, an Edomian. They
Oh.
turn into something else, and I'm not saying it right because you'd remember it if I were saying it right, but.
Okay.
Edomites.
Mm.
Are they Edomites?
Special green bean.
In the 2nd century BC, the Edomites were forcibly converted to Judaism by the Hasmoneans
Okay,
and were incorporated into the Jewish religion.
yeah. And that's why they were not considered to be real because it was a forced,
All right, because this is just south of the Dead Sea.
yeah.
So, okay. So modern day Israel covers this area now, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. So going back, some, other comments. Mine, back to 3, did you tell us how different yours was in terms of the really gory stuff, when you said, oh, yours was
Yeah.
way gorier?
Yahweh, verse 6, Yahweh's sword is gorged with blood, it is greasy with fat, and that greasy fat
and
keeps being used. That's why you're.
Mine has the fat of the kidneys of rams, that's very specific, the kidneys
Well, that's,
of ram.
Okay,
well, and the fat around the kidneys is, when you're making soap and using fat, that's the best fat to use. Because it's the purest or whatever.
the things we learn in Sunday school.
I never knew you were a chemist.
I went through a soap making.
Yeah.
Pictures and get the fat from around, get that fat.
Then somebody told you you could buy that at the store, right?
And not only that, but the dollar store.
Yeah, I tried it once, so I went back to one.
Um, Going back to verse 3, it got gory before verse 6. Verse 3, my translation said, "The mountains shall melt from their blood." Other translations,
Mountains will run with their blood.
yeah, melt. be-
Melt is a little more graphic, I think.
Yeah,
Mine says drenched
yeah,
with their
they said
blood.
that's common translation or flow, but it's worth retaining the literal sense of the Hebrew, which is strongly hyperbole. The tide of blood, vast and corrosive, will melt the mountains. And the scope of the poetry is very evident in verse 4. The swath of divine fury will encompass the very heavens, withering the stars.
And mine says the entire array of heaven will fall apart.
Yeah. This one withers the stars.
Ooh. Yep.
And the leaf withers. What'd you say?
He rots away.
But yeah,
Uh,
rots away this one.
Yeah. In verse 5, the appearance of Edom as the hated archenemy to be devastated by divine wrath suggests a relatively late date for this prophecy. Edom notoriously collaborated with Babylonian invaders in 586 BCE. And Psalm 137 recalls that.
We get it all taken care of here?
Yes, come in.
I'll add a little postscript.
Well, after the conversation we've been having. We're in chapter 34 of Isaiah,
Yeah,
Okay.
lots of blood.
and greasy fat.
Can you imagine what this might have been like for Isaiah to have these visions? Cause I just woke up this morning after a really strange dream. And this is what this is reminding me.
Strange dream.
I was getting ready to say, what did you eat last night?
Can imagine.
Usually. It didn't give me that bad a dream.
But it must have been horrifying, you
Yeah.
know? Whatever
Unless
kind
they
of
got
vision
used
he's
to it,
having.
because I mean, there's. not a
After
lot-
years and years and years, I'd say, forget this, you know?
But
Probably
God
won't.
doesn't
I'm gonna-
let you do that.
Yeah, right.
He
Probably
brings-
woke up and planned to switch mushrooms.
Yeah.
Right, mine has a footnote talking about the Edomites,
Mhm.
that at the time of the fall of Jerusalem in 587, and it already had a note that these two chapters were, I think, were written post-exilic.
Yeah.
The Edomites showed themselves particularly hostile to the kingdom of Judah and took advantage of its misfortunes. However, the later prophets and writers adopt a severe attitude towards Edom. Here, the ruin of Edom illustrated Yahweh's general sentence on the nations. So the prophets were pretty mad at the Edomites because of
Yeah.
how they took advantage of Judah after the fall of Jerusalem.
And then in the last verse, says the effect of this imagery is sarcastic. There's actually sarcasm there, not just blood and guts. Dividing up an inheritance.
That's some sarcasm too.
Right, that's why I'm reading this note, because I read it and went, huh? Yeah, and it
Because
said,
they were really mad.
Yeah.
To be that sarcastic.
dividing up an inheritance by lot, measuring out plots of land with a line, are actions appropriate to carefully assigning property for human possession. Here, however, these actions are meant to give everlasting property rights in what was once Edom to all of the animals. So that's why, that's the sarcasm.
Oh, that's the sarcasm.
That's the sarcasm.
You're so evil that the animals are gonna
Yeah.
just take over.
Hmm.
Okay. Well, you know,
People just leave property to their cats and dogs and they.
Yeah, but you know, I used to, some of y'all know this, when I was still teaching at state, I would, do workshops with a bunch of other people teaching farmers how to be better business people. They could farm, they just didn't know how to run a business. And one of the segments of this workshop was a woman who worked for the Black Family Land Trust in terms of leaving your land in a trust so it could be in agriculture forever. It could be developed. And she talked about her own personal family history where her grandfather died in 1956 and his will was probated in 1976. So, yeah. And part of her, it wasn't just the land trust, but, you know, have a will, have all those documents, and most importantly, let the people in the will, or not in the will, know what's in the will so it doesn't destroy the family after you die.
We are going to Charlottesville today to spend a couple of days to work on wills. and-
Okay.
It's in the air. We have an appointment on Wednesday.
We update ours every 10 years.
We did ours last.
Yeah, we did ours on for the
Yeah.
second time.
Yeah, but the important part, and I've read this many times because I taught personal money
Let people
management as
know.
well, is to let
The
people know because it has destroyed families.
Oh, yeah.
When people don't get what they expect.
Commercial right now.
You didn't know you could sing the parting glass.
We just tell our kids every year that this year you're gonna be a little less rich if we die.
Yeah.
All right, let's finish 35.
Okay, who wants to read 35? This one's only, what, 10 verses long? Okay, go Susan.
Okay, this is called Joy of the Redeemed.
The triumph of Jerusalem.
It's the road of holiness.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow. The desert and the parched land will be glad. The wilderness will rejoice and blossom. Like the crocus, it will burst into bloom. It will rejoice greatly and shout for joy. The glory of Lebanon will be given to it. The splendor of Carmel and Sharon, they will see the glory of the Lord, the splendor of our God. Strengthen the feeble hands, steady the knees that give way. Say to those with fearful hearts, be strong, do not fear. Your God will come. He will come with vengeance, with divine retribution. He will come to save you. Then will the eyes of the blind be open and the ears of the deaf unstopped. Then will the lame leap like deer and the mute tongue shout for joy. Water will gush forth in the wilderness and streams in the desert. The burning sand will become a pool, the thirsty ground bubbling springs in the haunts where jackals once lay. Grass and reeds and papyrus will grow, and a highway will be there. It will be called the way of holiness. It will be for those who walk on that way. The unclean will not journey on it. Wicked fools will not go about on it. No lion will be there, nor any ravenous beast. They will not be found there, but only the redeemed will walk there. And those the Lord has rescued will return. They will enter Zion with singing. Everlasting joy will crown their heads. Gladness and joy will overtake them, and sorrow and sighing will flee away.
That's an improvement. Anybody have anything drastically different for that?
Verse 7, we talk about the jackals again. The scorched land will become a pool and the thirsty ground springs of water. In the haunt of jackals, its resting place, grass becomes reeds and rushes.
How about the two of you with the weird vowels?
Just in 10 where this one says Jerusalem, not Zion. Yeah, that's, other than that, it was.
Does everyone have
It's easy
that
enough.
on that way, like in 8?
No, mine says the
It will
road.
be for those who walk on that way.
I have the road.
I've got that way.
And mine says will be called the sacred way.
No, this is,
I just always think of when Christianity started, it was the way.
Yeah.
What's
You
the,
know.
what's that hiking thing in Spain?
Oh,
Oh.
the, hold on, let me think, the,
That's the imagery that came to
To-
mind with these verses.
yeah, oh, it'll come to me.
Yeah,
Something
Martin
about-
Sheen did a movie.
Yeah. It's something.
Cause you
that's on my
told me
bucket
about it, and I
list.
watched it.
Yeah, it's something about the way,
Something about the way, yeah.
the way
It's
is
what,
definitely
500
in it.
miles or?
I think
Is that
if
in- where
you
is it, in
start in,
Spain?
if you start in France, you can start in France, it's over 800 miles or something. If you
Okay.
go all the way
Yeah, it's
from
a
France.
pilgrimage
across the
walk
Pyrenees,
Along the way.
all the
Spain,
way along northern Spain, and then you go to.
Camino de Santiago.
Yeah, that's it,
Yeah,
Camino
yeah,
de
that's it.
Santiago, that's it,
Santiago.
Camino de Santiago,
Thinking of friends.
the way of.
So in
It
that,
says El Camino de Santiago, or the Way of Saint James, invites countless pilgrims, blah, blah, blah.
yes,
Okay. I have very few notes here. This is, according to my guy, is definitely the work of second Isaiah. That is not entirely certain. I mean, he thinks it is, but even though the notion of those ransomed by the Lord returning on a holy highway is certainly in accord with the language and the themes of second Isaiah. The crocus, who knows if it's a crocus or a rose or something else I've never heard of. Spotted. You ever heard of that?
No.
Okay.
that's what my Bible uses, is that name.
Oh,
What's the
okay.
word?
Asphodel, Asphodel.
Oh, maybe it's not. There was somewhere in my Bible used it, but everybody else is using it.
This entire exhortation to the people is to be of good cheer, continuing, through the chapter, speaks to the condition of the exiles.
What is second Isaiah?
Isaiah was written by three different people,
At least.
at least three different people. The first, 39 books? Yeah, the first big chunk was first Isaiah, and then two smaller chunks by second and third. You know,
And it's-
different,
Well, very generally speaking.
but I know one time I taught, I had a little bitty passage that said, this is second Isaiah. You know, somebody grabbed it over there and stuck it over here.